Okay, everybody, another week of video feedback. Hopefully, these have been helpful to everybody in your evolution as photographers. And certainly, I always encourage everyone, if you're struggling with some of the concepts or some of the technical issues here, please get in touch with me. Just don't ignore it and pretend that it's going to heal itself, because it won't. Always happy to help you guys out. And I know this is an online class and maybe it doesn't seem as personal as it should, but I just want to reinforce that I'm here for you guys, and I can only help you if you let me know you need help. So with that being said, I'm going to warn everybody that I'm probably going to be a little bit tougher on you starting this week. I just want to see you guys push yourselves, and I want to reinforce the fact that this is not personal. So when I say stuff, please just look at it as ideas for you to try to refine your work and build upon it. And as I keep saying, aesthetics are very much about taste, and some people like vanilla, some people like chocolate, and certainly there's room for both of those kind of tastes in this world. So with that being said, let's start out with Katie's first image. She's working with positioning of a subject in a frame. So she's got this light bulb in the middle of the frame. I don't think there's anything wrong with this shot. And what I really love about this image, by positioning it here, it allows us to see these really interesting shadows on the wall. And I think, if anything, those are really what makes this version of the photograph, give us the most aesthetic enjoyment out of it. Then we've got an image in the upper right-hand corner. What I do like about this is, we talk about lines, and the way this light is kind of pointing in this direction, it's sort of very easy for our eye to kind of embrace it and work through it from the upper corner here to the bottom corner. So I do like that a lot, and again, I think these shadows here are pretty interesting and very compelling. Then just her Photoshop, or I'm sorry, her Camera Raw Photoshop settings in there. Again, I like them a lot. There's nothing there that I really see that I would change. Other than you reduced your blacks a lot, so 48 here. Maybe you could have done that by increasing your clarity. Just a slight thought, but honestly, the image looks strong. I would have not thought that there were such extreme corrections in that image. And then your next shot, where the light is in the upper left-hand corner. This is probably my least favorite of the group, because the light is actually going off the edges of the image, and I feel like we need a little bit of border around it to kind of frame it in there. And then the bottom left one here, let's get that centered again, which you described as being your favorite one. Yeah, I'm probably in agreement here. If you remember the rule of thirds, and I'm just doing this really quickly, but in the rule of thirds, the area where we have the lines of intersection, by placing your subject there, it's going to sort of embrace that golden mean of aesthetic beauty that the Greeks had espoused. So, I think that works good. I could either buy this one or this one right here. Either one of them, I think, are really strong images, and like the shot, love the perception of light that you have here, and also, your use of negative or empty space. You've simplified this frame very much, yet I feel like it's a super complex image. So, well done here, Katie. Really like what you're doing. Okay, next up we have Olivia's images, and here we have her diagonal line, horizontal line with the Camera Raw adjustments in there. The one thing I probably would recommend here is also taking your shadows and moving them a little bit to the positive end of things. I notice you've already changed your exposure almost 2 stops here, which is already a lot. So it looks to me like maybe, in this instance, you could have raised that ISO a little bit, and certainly opening those shadows up would have helped a little bit on that image. Horizontal, horizontal, there's our diagonal adjustments. Let's see what else we got here. And vertical. So I feel like this is your vertical shot is more like a diagonal shot, because there is, a lot of diagonal energy coming in from the left and right of the frame into the center. That being said, I think it's a really strong shot. I like it, and I especially love the fact that you chose to include a person in here, because sort of it reinforces the visual momentum that my eye has here. I'm traveling this way along this line, and this person is also traveling this way along the line. So really like it from that perspective, and I think your adjustments looked really good here. So again, your horizontal shot, I like it. As you mentioned, it kind of feels like gravestones, and honestly, when I first looked at it before even looking at your reflections, that's exactly what I thought it was. And in some way, sort of the darkness of that reinforces the feeling or the emotion that it has. And then the last one I wanted to look at was this one. You know what? This image just looks really, really dark. Obviously the lit rooms have some light in them, but I think in this image, if you could have just taken the shadows and pushed this almost all the way to the right, I think you would find that it would look pretty cool, because we'd be able to see a little bit of the lighting in the background here, but still you'd get that neat effect of almost like the glowing in the windows of the dorms and in the residence hall. So just a little technical thing, and this is why I want to see your camera raw adjustments, because really I think in this instance doing that would help. And I also notice you've got your blacks turned down all the way to 100%, which, I see why you did that, to give it, all this black here. But for me, it looks weird, because the rooms are almost floating in air. There's almost no context to them. So, that's my 2 cents on that. You might agree with me or disagree with me. That's fine. But at least, if nothing else, next time you open up this photo, play around with it by moving the shadow slider this way, and see if you get some results that you like. So, good job with this. Generally speaking, I think you're doing what I want you to do. Just a couple of little minor tweaks here, and I think you're in good shape. Okay, next up we have Samantha's work here, and again, Samantha's kind of working around with the different positioning of the subject there, and then her screen capture. So first, here, Samantha, this is not what I'm looking for. If you noticed in the previous 2 submissions between Olivia and Katie, you saw what that camera raw window looks like. This is not what I'm looking for, and as a matter of fact, this doesn't even look like it is a Photoshop program, which might explain to me why your information is actually your information isn't getting stripped there. Let me see if you're actually working in Photoshop here. It doesn't look like you were. Well, maybe you were. Anyhow, take a look at the other previous students' information, and you'll see what I'm looking for in that camera raw that shows the adjustments. So out of all these images, I think again, similarly to Katie's image, I think I like the one where it is in the bottom left corner. What I really love, again, you're using a lot of negative space here, And I think that negative space very clearly directs our attention to the flowers in the left corner. And also in some way the hardwood floor has a pattern to it, and you're breaking that pattern with your sunflowers. The one thing here I do want to point out, and again, to everybody, I'd prefer that you did not use a flash. You can see your flash fired here. The reason I don't like the flash is look at this big reflection here. What happens with our eye always tends to go towards the brightest spot in a photograph, and my eye is actually going to here and not to the flowers, which I think the flowers are the most interesting picture here. So just in the future, again, for everybody, please try to avoid using flash in your assignments. So moving forward, again, Samantha, I think you've got the idea of the assignment. I like, especially your use of negative space. So just keep that in mind. Continue to keep your images simple, and I think they'll be very effective. And of course, remember to turn that flash off for me. And next up, we have Clarice's work. So Clarice, first and foremost, here again, this is your Photoshop window, and certainly I appreciate that you are working in Photoshop, and I'm glad that you've got that operating for yourself. But it's not the Camera Raw window. Again, you should be using a Camera Raw file format and opening that up in the Camera Raw window. And again, I would refer you back to our first two students, Katie and Olivia, to look at their screen captures of the Camera Raw windows. So you've got your 4 images working around with different positioning on things. It's kind of interesting because I think this one is really solid. We could probably argue about where the subject is in this. The flag is in the middle of the frame, but I'm wondering if our eye is actually attracted to the sun here, which is in the lower left-hand corner of it. So, definitely a strong contender there. I like that shot a lot. I think it works well. But I think when you put both the flag and the sun in the lower left-hand corner, now you've got a really spectacular image. And I think, again, if we were to do that rule of thirds grid on here, we would definitely see that is right in the sweet spot for us, right in this corner right here. So well done on that. Of course, we look at the other ones. Again, certainly nothing wrong with any of these. And on some level, the negative space in here is really fascinating. And I like that. But again, I think, this one right here is just the right balance of subject positioning and negative space up in the sky here. So really like that a lot. Good job with that. Again, try to work on that Camera Raw interface and make sure you're actually shooting your negatives, shooting your files in Camera Raw for me, okay? Thanks. Okay, next up we have Genesis's images here. I'm really struggling with a couple of these images here, Genesis. So let's talk about this one first. This, I think, and I agree with you that this might be your strongest image here. I love the fact that we've got the pattern of the wall in the library, and even to some degree the pattern of the stamping and the bricks here, all sort of lead our eye to these people that are sitting here. I wonder if we were to get a little bit closer, whether this image becomes stronger. So, maybe we consider a crop in there. The other thing that I would want you to think about is you do have a reflection. Looks like you shot this through a window. So in instances like this, if you can open up the window, definitely do that. If you can't open up the window, you almost have to put the camera right against the glass so that the reflections aren't picked up in there. So bookstore image, I feel like this image is super, super, super busy. A lot going on in here. And if anything, this module was about simplifying things, and you just got too much going on in here. So as you get going here in the next couple modules and working towards our midterm project, you really got to work on simplifying your stuff. You just got too much going on in these things. Where do you want our eye to go? Is it over here, this almost X-like shape? Is it the Canisius sweatshirt? Is it these sunglasses or glasses in the foreground? Is it the clothing here? Is it this artwork in the back? I don't know. The image is really confusing, and I don't see a compositional structure that is helping the viewer sort things out. So you really got to work through that. This image is blurry. Hopefully you see that it's blurry. If you don't see that it's blurry, then we've got even bigger problems than I think right now. At this point in the semester, the only blurs that are acceptable are ones that are intentionally blurred. So, for example, a movement blur, like we had done in the first couple of exercises. That's okay. But this is a miss. This is out of focus. Your camera, or whether you're focusing manually, I'm not sure what the issue is here, but it's out of focus. And I hate to beat you up here, but you've got to do better. Absolutely have to do better at this point in the semester. And if you were to turn this in for your midterm project, that would be a super, super heavy reduction in your grade, because we are looking for the best work. That being said, there's still time to improve here, and I always say that mistakes are okay as long as you learn from them. So please, please, please make sure that you get that focus issue straightened out. Again, kind of like your image in the bookstore, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be looking at. It almost looks like this guy in the background is what I should be looking at, and he's kind of oddly facing the school rather than you, and I just don't think it's a flattering position for him. The image is also tilted a little bit to the left, and your exposure is off here a little bit. So lots of things to work on here, Genesis. But again, try to learn from your mistakes, and if you need help, I'm here for you. So don't be shy about asking for help. Okay. So next up we have Tori's images, and Tori, like what you're doing here with the sign, and it's interesting because with the sign you give us some writing, and generally speaking, our mind, especially when we have writing in there, kind of wants to be symmetrical in things. So I think that works, and it's interesting positioning of him in the middle of it. I definitely think that works. Not sure it's your strongest image of the group here. Similarly with this, again, an interesting placement. Really love all the negative space here. The only thing I'm not super crazy about here is that tree. It almost looks like the tree is growing out of his head. It's almost like fireworks are exploding out of there. So maybe just moving him over a little bit, or moving your whole frame over a little bit, just kind of avoids that. And then your image where he's off to the side, as has been the case with a couple images here so far, with your classmates, I think the ones where you put them off center work the best here. Again, we have some negative space and some lines that all lead the viewer's eye over to your friend sitting up on the wall there. So I think it works really well from that perspective. I did not see a screen capture of your Photoshop RAW adjustments, so I can't talk about those. But again, I'm sorry to hammer everybody with this, but right now we need to be shooting in Photoshop RAW for this assignment, and I need to see that. So if you get a chance, please send that to me. So next assignment, I may even ask you to put that in there too. All right, so look forward to what you got for us in the upcoming week. And next up, we have Elise's work. And I think, Elise, you've done a really nice job in this assignment. You've taken on our different forms of lines. You've got the vertical line, the diagonal line, the vertical line, the curved line. And for some reason, this image wouldn't open up in Photoshop for me, so I've just got it in here. But that's your horizontal line. Yeah, I really like all of these, especially the subject placement in here. Again, it feels very tranquil with these horizontal lines in there. And, you know, it kind of feels like quiet, like an attic or some hidden closet would. Here you've got your curved lines. I feel like this image is a little bit on the busy side. Again, I'm not sure where my eye is supposed to go, and if you compare this to some of your other images that are very simple, clean, and don't have a lot of elements going on in them, I think it doesn't really hold up to those. So this might be the weakest of your group. Your vertical lines here, love this, and especially love the sort of little notches in there that add one extra geometric or formal element to it. That certainly is very visually interesting. And then last but not least, your diagonal lines. Love this, kind of an abstract photograph, but you can see how it looks very modern, very contemporary, and I feel like the diagonal lines are certainly the reason, or at least one of the reasons, that I get that impression. So I kind of leave this as your best of the group, at least for my opinion. Don't see a screen capture of your Photoshop RAW in there, so we do need to see that. So if you've got it, send it over to me. Otherwise, we'll look for what you have for us next week. So please, 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 again, I'm beating everybody up about this, but need to see Photoshop RAW screen captures to make sure that you are actually working in this. You are required to work in Photoshop RAW for this assignment. And next up we have Kate's work. Got some curved lines here. Also sort of a pattern breaker, and we've got mostly orange pumpkins and this one sort of striped pumpkin here. And your vertical lines. And again, I mentioned that composition is kind of like a recipe, and you have to, combine them in the right proportion to get an interesting image here. So you've used pattern, again, as your ally, and certainly the vertical lines also really work in this photograph. Then your diagonal image, another beautiful shot. Sort of everything is rolling downhill in that, which kind of reinforces the visual movement of what's going on. Really neat shot. I like this. Interesting vantage point too. And then, sorry, you've got, that's not your shot. Hold on a sec. Let me go back and get rid of that. And interesting horizontal shot. Always wonder why people choose to go in black and white. In this image, I think it really works because black and white oftentimes relies upon shape, and I think shape is very much clear and part of the compelling aspect of this image. So really strong image, like that a lot. So great group of images here. I love what you're doing, Kate. Super work. The only thing that is missing, again, is our Photoshop RAW screen capture. So please get that to me. And unfortunately, without it, your assignment isn't complete. So please get that to me. And next up, we have Sammy's work here. So you're working different areas with the subject here. You've got stuffed animal in the center. Got it in the rule of thirds. You've got it at the top of the frame and at the bottom of the frame. Boy, some tough decisions here. I'm not. Let's maybe eliminate some. I'm not super crazy about this. I feel a little bit disoriented with it. So, but again, super job with the creativity. I love the fact that you're you're pushing yourself, you're trying new vantage points, you're being creative with your work. That's ultimately what's going to pay off in the end. I really like this shot a lot. The subject's at the bottom, but my eye also kind of climbs the stairs and sort of enters the photo here. So I think that really works. And it's a position that a lot of people don't put the subject in a photo, so good job with that. Then on the side here, again, similarly, I feel like there's a little bit of disorientation there. Creatively, the image works, but maybe not the strongest of the group. And then the center here, I guess I'm most attracted to this one. I really like the way the lines push into the stuffed animal, and the chair itself with sort of the worn texture to it really works for me. So good job on that. And then last but not least, we've got your Photoshop RAW window screen capture, which, thank you. I appreciate you actually taking the time to do this and uploading it. For those of you that did not do it, this is what I am looking for. So please, everybody, make sure I get this. Sammy, great job, and continue the good work as we move forward. So next up we have Jabril's images, and so he's working with pattern in here, and really love the subject matter. I don't know if any of you guys have had a chance to visit the Freedom Wall. It is just down the street from the college on the intersection of Cold Spring and Ferry, right behind the bus station there. So if you just went down to Ferry and made a left, Ferry from the college, made a left-hand turn, it's just down the street there. So Jabril, one quick thing, and again, a couple of you guys have done this. I'd avoid using a flash, because as you can see what's happening here, the center of your frame gets more intense light than the edges of the frame. So that's really why I'm trying to get everybody to avoid using a flash. It really isn't an ideal way of illuminating your images. But I really like this. I love love the horizontal nature of this image. It's very tranquil. It has a certain sense of stability to it. That kind of reinforces the character of each one of these people that are portrayed in there. So I like that a lot. And then again, using the pattern, but in this sense also adding the diagonal line in there. And I think in this case, it really allows us to kind of move visually through all of these pictures. And when we can get visual momentum or visual movement, I think it gets the viewer much more engaged in the photograph and much more interested in it. And then working with the singular photo, looks like your image is just a little bit out of focus here, so certainly want to work on that. I do like, again, sort of the yin and yang here going on. We've got that really bright gold color there, and the Freedom Wall sign that tends to be less colorful, so there's almost an interesting contrast there. And then probably your weakest photo is this image right here. Again, it looks like it's out of focus, so really got to work on focus. It's not unusual for nighttime shots. I know probably shooting at night is a little bit more difficult, so please, just if you are shooting at night, maybe bring along or sign out a tripod from the media center. And last but not least, again, thanks for putting that camera raw window up there. I kind of would like to see you go ahead and play around with some of your adjustments in here. Maybe the shadow adjustments would work to help open up some of these panels in the background there. So good job, and appreciate you sharing all of these wonderful images with us. And next up we have Maddie's images. So we've got a vertical shot, and I really like this. And again, we've got not only vertical lines here, but we also have pattern going on here. So our eye is kind of attracted to the rhythm of the pattern of all the vertically stacked books. So that really works for me. There's your screenshot of our camera raw panel. Again, great, super appropriate settings. I like that. Your horizontal line. You know, I guess this is horizontal, although it's slightly tilted one way, which makes it a little bit more diagonal. So probably doesn't have that sense of calmness and quietness. And even it's got a little bit of a curve here too. So it's probably not a perfect example of horizontal, but I certainly get where you're going with that. A diagonal image, you know, again, your sharpness is right here. Maybe, you know, better, a little bit larger depth of field here would have let all these books stay in focus. You know, the problem is what's in focus right here is kind of upside down. So it's a little bit challenging to read. And then your curved image, which, you know, is probably my favorite of the book, of the group. And I love the fact that, again, you're using that blurred technique in here. So you're kind of building upon some of the things we've done in the past. So nice job with this, and I really liked the way you approached something that, you know, I get a lot of pictures of books in this class. So, you know, I think you were pretty creative and challenged yourself to do something different with these books. So like it a lot, and look forward to seeing what you've got for us in the upcoming week. And next up we have Maddie's work. Wow, what a big, beautiful S-curve. Perfect example of an S-curve that I've talked about. You know, there's sort of this long sweeping line that has kind of a back and forth that tends to be, you know, very smooth. I almost feel like I should be driving a, you know, a nice Audi sports car along the road here. And then vertical shot, yeah, you know, my eye almost goes straight up, like it wants to look up into the canopy of the trees. Horizontal shot. And again, I like how you've used all this sort of negative space or empty space and played it up against these flowers. I think that works. A certain sense of simplicity to this photograph that is very compelling for me. And then last but not least, the diagonal lines. Yeah, you know, there's sort of a, you know, a kind of energy here. And it's a sort of energy that almost, I'm waiting in anticipation for these lights to turn on. So I think part of that anticipation comes from the fact that there are all these very active diagonal lines in there. So that very much works. And then last but not least, we've got your screenshots. You went ahead and gave me, it looks like here, let me pull all of them up. I think you gave me all Photoshop panels. Yeah, so these are all Photoshop panels. These aren't our camera raws. So again, just refer to those other settings that, or the other students in the videos that use the Photoshop raw setting on the camera and the paint. So for everybody, nice job with this assignment. The biggest point of emphasis for me moving forward is just making sure that you're all shooting in camera raw and using that, because it really is going to be a difference maker in your photography. Other than that, I think everybody is moving along nicely, and keep pushing the creative button here as we start to begin to think about your midterm projects coming up. So I will see you in a few days.